But when he called, the lady that was the head of, criminal prosecutor for the Fort Worth office supervised. They said she was dead. They were surprised as heck, that she wasn't in the office that day. And he turned ashen when he heard that on the phone. Then we found out that the person that was in charge of the False Claims Act, when people like a healthcare provider steal money from the government through Medicare fraud, that lady, Thelma Louise, she had died just less than 40 days earlier. And they were both in their 40s, our age, and it really hit home. And it seemed strange that there was no, under the Gonzales Justice Department and his newly installed Northern District of Texas U.S. Attorney, no press releases, no coverage whatsoever. We were shocked. We eventually traced down the story in the Dallas Morning News, an obituary. Later, they fired the top 3 white-collar crime experienced attorneys in that same office. So as a nation, we ended up living it a couple years later when you saw there was no enforcement in the securities, banking, in the industry.
Yes, why did they fire the attorneys?
What'd you say?
Why did they fire the attorneys? What was
well, after the 2 women died under real questionable circumstances, there's some controversy about the means and method of their death. There were 2 of the 4 assistant U.S. attorneys nationwide killed during the Bush years, and I think they were all related to RICO criminal syndicate activity. But of these 2, the 2 women in that office are dead, and you can see you got a new U.S. attorney that you've got some doubt about, in charge of the whole office, another Gonzales Bush appointee. And if you had any kind of chest paw at all, you'd be working in that office, and you'd be ready to go after the people that did it. One of the experienced white-collar professionals that they, made his living just tearing down white-collar business criminal enterprises was a former Green Beret. I mean, these guys couldn't be stopped, so they made one a judge and fired the other 2. So later, we started learning the Abramoff scandal as it broke, and we started seeing the effects of how you were able to buy influence in the Bush administration and get that U.S. attorney in your state removed or fired. We were in Missouri. Mr. LaPerry's company is a Missouri company. That was the epicenter of the wrongful U.S. attorney's firing. So you didn't have to have them all whacked. You could just contact Mr. Rove, Karl Rove, and have them removed. They're just now getting to the bottom of that.
Right. So they were neutralizing them in murder, and they were neutralizing them in firing, and just so that they can organize a scheme.
Yeah, it's when you look at our big industries nationally, you can see that as we merge into the New World Order plan, the North American Union, those are all pretty much it's fascism, but it's really, you want to assign market share to the big corporate partners. I mean, if GE helped George W. Bush get elected, you're going to promise, as they did, Mr. Welch, Jack Welch, the CEO of GE, no problems as he merges media outlets and no more antitrust enforcement. And Karl Rove was able to deliver. So they made partners that lasted a long time. Now you can see Jeffrey Immelt, GE's successor chairman, that he's trying to ingratiate himself with the Obama administration, and you can see who's the most radically pro-Obama or a left liberal Democrat supporting in their news media, and you'd have to say MSNBC or one of the IMELT controlled stations.
Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of difficulty from the start with this, and this started working into other things. Can you describe what was going on? I know you're involved with Stu, or you have been as far as a legal case was concerned, and I think Dave Price had something going on in Kansas as well. Can you get into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, I was working on the medical supply chain case, and I was following the rules of my state. I had to do some pro bono work, and
that was in Missouri. You filed that?
No, in Kansas, but where David's at, and I was a Kansas licensed attorney, and I kept hearing David's story. He's telling me stuff that couldn't have happened in this adoption case that he was in, and later, his attorney abandons him, and his court-appointed attorney, and he's got to take it to appeal. And I remember my continuing education credits in the appellate work, and I thought, well, that wouldn't be too hard to research the law. Well, that's something that's not supposed to happen. Somebody from the wrong side of tracks isn't supposed to have competent legal representation, and it's if you got a relationship-based legal system, like some people would like Kansas to be, I think they're in error. But you do business more efficiently. It's the phone call, the ex parte or out-of-court communication that drives things. So if you're there following the rules and you're researching the law, you're the last to know what's really happening. And I probably could have looked at some Wichita TV stations were covering some similar theft of infants. There was a lady, a pharmacist, who had her child stolen and sold, and she was fighting in the system. But I was a new attorney, and I was just reading the case law, and I wasn't researching, say, on Google or looking at what different media outlets were covering at the time. So I was a victim of that kind of compartmentalization, yet I was still able to look at the facts and argue effectively from the Kansas Supreme Court's own prior decisions. But that just made me a bigger enemy of people with some power, and the people that needed to have Mr. LaPerry's case tanked. Thank God we're able to connect to those people. They didn't have to whack me. I'm sure it just took a phone call. And it didn't matter what the evidence was, didn't matter what the testimony. You can read the transcripts online. They wouldn't even let us present the evidence that they later disbar me over. So, I've been able to enjoy the consequences of that. It continues. They tend to make sure that I don't get any employment or have any property.
Let's talk about the ways they've targeted you with all of this. They took away your law license because they didn't want to practice. They didn't want you to practice. They had to neutralize you that way. You say that they're now making it impossible for you to work. So they're trying to break you financially?
If you whack a kid just out of law school, I went to Midwest Law School, so Kansas, Washburn, a good school. So I only had $140,000 worth of school loan debt. So you're going to knock me out of the saddle. I'm not going to repay any of that. I'm not able to. But that's not enough in the Kansas game. I knew how bad it was because a lot of the witnesses and people that testimony in different federal cases, I knew what they were doing. They tend to contact your employers. If you apply for a job now, your Social Security number puts you on a database. If you're a friend of Dick Cheney or Citibank or one of its the people at the top of the food chain, Goldman Sachs, all these industries that are monopolizing toward the big North American Union idea, you're